he's back. What's going on, boxing fans? Welcome to Backchat TV. We're going to get straight into this amazing matchup that we've been waiting for. Caleb Plant versus Benavedez. This is a very difficult fight to predict. And majority of people is kind of, I would say it's kind of 60-40 in favour of Benavedez for most people that I've heard. Maybe even a bit more, but I would say about 60-40. People are definitely split. I was definitely split on who I think was going to win. But the reason why I want to make a quick prediction, because it is a quick prediction because the fight's later on today, is because my thought pattern on this, I think, is quite different. I think you're going to hear from me something quite different from how other people have analysed this fight. Because I've seen a few things. I see something. Famous Mikey Garcia quote when he was going to fight Errol Spence. I see something. I see a chink in the armour of one of these fighters. And I see one of these fighters has evolved from the last two fights in a way that the other fighter maybe hasn't. And something quite different is going to happen in this fight, contrary to what most people think. So I'm going to get into what I mean by this. So initially, I favoured Benavedez in this fight because he's a big, strong guy. He's a lot bigger than people think. He's big for the weight class, despite the way he kind of looks when he comes in the weigh-in. He has to lose quite a lot of weight, more than the other fighters, and he rehydrates quite big, like the way Canelo does. And it shows in the ring, you know. He's a big, tall guy, long arms, power. A lot of the times, these fighters look quite undersized against him, and he corners them. He uses a lot of pressure. He's height, he fights like a big man, cuts off the ring really well, and most people just can't get out of the way, you know. He just breaks you down. Hard shots, cuts off the ring. He's got good boxing skills. He's got deceptively fast hands. Most people think he's a little bit slow, but the way he cuts off the ring and the way that he closes down the distance makes him deceptively quick, a little bit like Joe Joyce in the heavyweights. Joe Joyce looks like a guy who's plodding and really slow, but why does he keep beating people? It's the way, it's the manner in how he closes down the range. It's the way that he throws jabs to get in range. And kind of Benavidez is kind of similar. You know, he is a bit plodding with his footwork, but he can close down range quite quickly. He's got deceptively long arms. He really winds up a lot of power. He's got a lot of leverage on those arms, and you know, he can throw like lots of punches when he wants to. He's got a great output, and that's enough to beat a lot of people. And I was including that in Plant, to be honest, before, because Plant now is kind of the opposite. He's a good boxer, good skills, good defense, good footwork. Most of the time he fights on the back foot, kind of outpointing people and countering, and then he kind of steps it up once he can see that he's kind of getting the better of you, or he just fights on the back foot and wins point decisions. And he's very good at doing that. The problem came in his last fight. Well, not his last fight. The fight he had with Canelo was probably the best fight he's had, because it taught him the best lesson that slick boxing and fighting on the back foot, you can't always win at the top level. You can't always win like that. Unless you're Mayweather. He's the only person I've seen do it. Most people against elite fighters can't fight like that, because eventually they get broken down, because you get tired. You use twice as much energy as the person who's stalking you, fighting on the back foot, especially if they're very aggressive, throwing a lot of punches like Benavidez. A lot of the times you start to fade, which is what we see with Plant when he does employ that kind of tactic. It looks good at first. He's countering, he's on the back foot, you can't touch him, but eventually you start to slow down. And people like Benavidez, the power starts to catch up. People like Canelo, these heavy punchers with a lot of skills, with a lot of pressure, they just catch up to you. And Plant, in his fight against Canelo, he learnt that the hard way. And I think a lot of people don't realise what he learnt from that fight. He learnt that all that slip boxing on the back foot, having the reach advantage, eventually it didn't do him any good, because he couldn't keep Canelo off him. and in the end, Canelo got the knockout. So he then went into the fight against Darrell, and before he went into the fight with Darrell, he kind of changed his strategy now. I don't know if people notice. So instead of using his speed and his timing to outbox people, he's now being more aggressive and using it to knock people out. So now he's going for the knockout. He's trying to get the knockout before you can put your guard up. You know, that 1-2, he's setting up the shots. And you see it against Darrell. He wasn't happy to just outbox him. He was trying to get him in a position where he could land that right hand. Set her up with the left hand. That 1-2 was perfect. And Darrell didn't get up. Yeah, it was a perfect shot. So what I'm trying to say is he's developed his power because he already has everything as a boxer. Great boxing skills, great defense, great counter punching. He's got blistering fast hand speed and great timing. And now he's developed power, as we can see what he did to Darrell. So why outbox somebody? Yeah, and I think this is where Plant has developed more than Benavedez. Plant has learnt from his losses. His loss to Canelo has taught him that being on the back foot against a pressure fighter, an elite pressure fighter, doesn't work. And going for the knockout and actually using your superior hand speed, your superior timing, your superior footwork to deliver a knockout blow is actually better than trying to outbox someone for 12 rounds. And I think he's learnt this now. The loss to Canelo, which was a devastating loss, and then the comeback win against Darrell has taught him what he needs to do. So I think if he didn't have these fights against Canelo, Benavidez would beat him because he would be trying to outbox, counter, and eventually he would just, Benavidez too strong, powerful, it would just get to him in the end, like the way Canelo did. And that's what would happen to Canelo. That's what would have happened to Plant if Plant didn't have those two fights against Canelo. The loss against Canelo and the win against Darrell has made him evolve into a sniper. And I don't think a lot of people have seen this. He's now a sniper. Most people are saying, oh, we know what he's going to do. He's going to come in, fight on the back foot. And if he can outbox him, he can maybe get a decision. Plant, I'll tell you now, Plant will not get a decision in this fight. Plant will either win by knockout or he's going to get stopped himself. I'll tell you why. Because Plant is going for the knockout in this fight. I guarantee you. He will box for the first couple of rounds and, put pressure on and counter punching and all that stuff, the back foot, having a high guard and stuff like that. All the slick stuff, he will still do that. He is a boxer. He is a slick boxer, so he will always do that. But he's going to use this to set up a power punch now. That's the difference. Because against Canelo, he realised that he didn't have that. And now he's adapted that. I've seen some footage of his training and he's sparring, and some people that have spoken about sparring him, they say he hits so hard, people don't realise it. He probably hits harder than Benavidez. So he's developing that power and he's now trying to deliver that in a knockout blow. A little bit like Deontay Wilder. If you look at Deontay Wilder, he knocks out all his opponents. Why does he do it? Everyone says because he's got power, but it's not just power. He's got good hand speed, he's athletic, and he delivers that knockout punch. Whereas other fighters, they try to outbox you if they've got those attributes sometimes, But why do that? So I think that Plant is going to shock Benavidez. He's going to catch him because Benavidez kind of gives me this feeling that his defense is a bit leaking. Because he's taller than people, he can tend to just lean back. He's quite straight up in the air. He often comes forward with his hands down and his chin in the air, which is an invitation for Plant. He sometimes drops his hands. I've seen him in the middle of his combination drop his hands, but I've also seen him stalking his opponent with his hands down sometimes. And 100% Plant will catch him, but he doesn't realise that this is what Plant is planning. So I predict that Plant is going to hit him with a shot that similar to what he hit Darrell with. And the question is, can he withstand this power shot? Because he's definitely going to get hit, and I believe he's definitely going to get dropped. The difference, I think, in this fight is Benavidez, like I said, is a big, strong guy. I think he might be able to take it And if he takes it, he's going to be wary. And then at that point, if Plant can't land a punch like that again, I think Benavidez wins by just breaking him down and stopping him in the late rounds. But if he can't take this power punch that I know Plant is planning, then I think we're going to see something quite shocking, quite different to what we think. And I think Plant might stop him in like the 5th round. And no one predicts that. But I can see that Plant has kind of evolved into, like I said, more of a sniper. He's now looking for that knockout punch, whereas before he didn't really have confidence in that. He's always been kind of a safety first, kind of outbox you and counter. And I think now that Durrell knockout has given him the confidence to use all those attributes he's got to go for the knockout. And that's going to be the difference in this fight. So I'm not completely sure, that Plant is going to win. Like I said before, I was actually backing Benavidez, but when I watched Benavidez and I've watched Plant, Benavidez to me seems a bit unassuming. He doesn't realise that Plant is going to go for the knockout. He's thinking that he's going to pressure Plant and get him in the corner, and Plant is going to do all that slip boxing and he'll wear him down later, which is what most people think. He doesn't realise that this is not the fight that Plant is planning, because Plant found out the hard way that doesn't work against the elite fighters, elite pressure fighters. So let's see. But my controversial prediction, is that Benavidez gets dropped within the first 6 rounds. 100%. He's not going to see it coming and he will get dropped. If he can't survive it, he'll get stopped probably in the next round. If he can survive it, I think he'll readjust, and then I think he may go on to stop Plant. But that's how I see the fights. I can't say both. I'm going to go against my inclination to Benavidez being the bigger, stronger fighter who may weigh him down. I'm going to go for the underdog, which is Plant, just like Hopkins. Bernard Hopkins also went for Plant, but for a different reason. I think he's going to get the knockout that nobody expects. Let me know what you think about my controversial views. Let me know how likely or unlikely, I think most people are going to say unlikely, you think this is to happen. I'm on to the next one.